Today we're going to be installing leather seat covers on some seats out of a 71 Corvette. The customer brought us the leather covers, the foam, and the wire installation kit, which you need for these seats. All new parts. He brought us all that stuff. Our labor rate is $125 an hour. We charged $1,000 for this job because it takes about 4 to 5 hours per seat. All right, I've already got one of the seats done here. This is the second seat, and I'm gonna blow this thing off a little bit, and I'm gonna start taking the lever. There's a rod that goes up into the backrest. It's attached to the bottom, and that's what, when you push the button, it releases this rod and lets the seat lean forward. So I'm gonna take that off of the base, and I'm just gonna I'm cleaning my parts up as I go. I'm gonna be, anything that shows that like has gotten rusty or anything like that, I'm gonna clean it off and paint it black. The tracks are gonna get painted black. The chromes on this, on the bottom of the backrest where it attaches to the cushion, the chromes were nice. You can't get new chromes for that, but we didn't need them on this job. The customer didn't get them. I think he said these seats have been sitting in storage for a while, and he's been working on the car. So I'm gonna disconnect the back from the bottom here. Take off the stoppers. I don't want to spend, I sped the video up a lot for the disassembly because it's, you know, you're just taking stuff apart. But it is important to remember that basically if you do it right, if you take the seat apart, you're going to put it back together in exactly the opposite sequence, you know, if you've done it right, more or less. So right here I'm taking off, it's a little hard to see, but there's a bracket there where the lever from the track goes through this little bracket. You have to get that out of the way. And then right here there's these clips that hold the cover. And I'm not like prying them wide open. I'm just prying them open just a little bit because they have these little teeth on them. I'm just prying them just a little bit so they'll release that cover. And now I'm gonna go ahead and cut the hog rings that are attaching the foam and cover and everything to the frame and just peel that all off as one. And now I'm going to start taking the backrest apart, a couple screws in the bottom of the shell on the back. The customer also brought us new shells. There's a little trick when you're putting that shell back on. I'll show you when we get to installation, because the way you have to do it, it kind of wants to damage the seat. So just taking the stoppers off, I'm going to remove the little bracket. It goes around the seat belt part on the back, the bracket around the button. Start taking all the hog rings out. I twist the hog rings a lot whenever I can. I prefer twisting them to cutting them. If I can, I'm not going to mess anything up. I think it's easier. Now I'm going to remove the mechanism, the button mechanism. It has 4 small screws. There's 2 on the bottom, 2 kind of in the middle, and then there's 2 larger nuts at the top. So there goes the mechanism. And now I'm removing, there's 3 nuts that hold the frame that goes across the front of the cover, that thing there. There's 3 nuts. Now I think that thing's made out of that's like 50-year-old pot metal or something. And the nuts, the whole thing is kind of like, it's a little sketchy, I'll be honest with you. The nuts are like those little nutsert things, or they're not nutserts, but they're not real nuts. They're kind of chintzy, but they are what they are, and you got to deal with it, right? And clean this thing off a little bit. Clean that bracket. The seatbelt thing goes across the front of the seat. Clean that thing up a little bit. Just using some degreaser, light degreaser. And we're going to start putting the cover, the wires through the foam here. So the deal with the installation kit is, like, most seats will have the wires that are in the foam and you just hog ring them to that. And I don't really know why they didn't do that on this seat. I guess they just wanted to wanted us to have more fun with it. So what you get is you get this wiring kit that comes with some different length wires that you have to put in the listings that they put on the seat covers. And then you get these other wires, and there's a bunch of them, and they're like 6 different lengths. And you have to attach them to the covers and then push them through the foam and lay a wire across the back of the foam and attach them to that. So right here what I'm doing is I'm holding my cover down in there, and I'm taking a Sharpie and I'm marking. There's holes in the foam that they come, they are where they are. That's the holes you need to use. So I mark where those are on the listing, and then I'm coming back in here and I'm just cutting little notches so that when I have to install these wires, I'm not trying to push the wire through the listing cloth. It's just a little thing you can do. You can see the notches there. It just makes it just a little bit easier, because this part of the job is really, I really don't know why they did this. It just makes it more fun, but it's how it's supposed to be done. And so that's what we're doing. We're doing it the way it's supposed to be done, right? I suppose that you could put a wire in the foam yourself and then just put a wire in the cover and hog ring it. That might work. It's not going to be the way that they intended it to be, though. So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at my little. I don't have it all memorized how it goes, and like I said, there's like a bunch of different length wires. That's what I got in my hand there. One of the little packages. You get like 6 little packages, and I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different length of wires. And as you go, you can see the foam is like slanted. So as you go from one end to the other, the wires get shorter. Here you can see them there. A lot of fun. Big fun part. This actually takes quite a bit of time to install these wires. And now I'm going to just line my cover up, and I'm going to start on that listing that goes across the middle. And what I've got here is I've got like that tool I have, that green handle tool is actually like a brake spring pulling tool. It's just got a little hook on it, and I'm hooking the wire that I have on the listing, and I'm pulling it through, and I'm attaching it to this wire on the back of the foam. And of course, I'm trying to compress the foam too as I'm doing it. You can see me shoving the foam down. And then I got the pliers, because sometimes when I pull it up or with the brake tool, it has like, the wire has this like tiny little lever. It's like like almost like a paper clip you're dealing with. And I'm using the pliers once I get it up there. If I need to turn it, I just grab it with the pliers and turn it a little bit to get that clip to clip over the wire. I actually have this is probably only maybe the second set of this particular seat that I've done, and I forgot how much fun these wires were. I really did. So here's the backrest. We're just going to do the same thing. I think I speeded up a little bit here. The holes in the foam, you kind of have to poke those through. They have just a little bit of foam covering them. And then here I'm cutting out the hole for that bracket. Same deal. They have the foam's real thin right there. So I'm just cutting that out with a razor blade, prepping it up. And now I'm just going to do the same thing with the wires on this cover, turn the cover inside out. You also have to snip the listing at the end where they've sewn it. They kind of sew the listings down. You have to snip them to kind of set them free so they hang right. And then I'm just going to put all these wires in. They have the ends of the wires bent, but you'll notice me with some pliers sometimes, and I'm just they have like a little J on the end, and I like to make sure that thing is clamped all the way down so that the part that's kind of curved around isn't going to stick through the cover ever. So I just kind of clamp them down a little harder. And you can see my notches I've made in my cover there, and you just go by the diagram. They send you a thing with a diagram. You just go by the diagram. It's kind of funny because a lot of times they'll send you instructions with stuff, aftermarket stuff, and it's just like, what is it? You'll read them and you'll be like, there's no point in this. These instructions are ridiculous. But these ones are actually useful if you're using this wire kit. So I got the center. I always do the one that goes across the seat in the middle, or between the two longer ones. You do the middle one first. Just pulling them up with my my little brake tool, using the pliers, flipping it over, checking it, looking at, okay, everything looks fine, everything looks right. I used, for the wires that are on the back of the seat, they don't send you those in the kit, so I used the old ones as much as I could, and I think that worked out pretty good. I think these two longer ones that are on the back of the backrest, I think I went ahead and made some new ones because the old ones weren't quite long enough. I didn't think they were going to work just right. All right, now we're going to start putting this thing together. First thing you're going to do is hog ring from the springs on the frame to those wires on the back of the foam. Get the frame attached to the foam. Now I'm cutting out little notches where the backrest attaches to the bottom in the foam. I don't want to have foam in front of a hole if I can help it. So I made those little notches in the sides, you can see. And now I've got this little kit of leather punches. That is what they actually are. They're little cutters in a bunch of different shapes. And I'm marking where that bracket for the rod that goes to the button, where it goes on the foam, and there's about 1 inch of foam right here. So I'm taking one of these round cutters and I'm just cutting the foam away around where the bolt hole is. And anything like this that I can do, the little notch in the side, right here with the round cut, I'm going to do this because I don't want to be trying to stick a bolt through a bunch of foam. I already have to cut holes in the cover, and anything like this you can do beforehand or in the process is going to make installation easier. And I'm all about making it easier on myself. You know what I mean? Now when I go to put this cover on, you're going to see that black strip is a 1 inch webbing. That's loose. And then there's cardboard on the bottom. You don't want to get that webbing wadded up because it will make a lump towards the bottom of the cover. So you got to get this thing pulled around. I'm going to do the front 2 edges first. I think I got a little bit of a lump in the webbing, so I pulled it back up. And they put that webbing on there to protect the cover from the frame when you pull it around the edge. So I'm pulling it over. I'm making sure not to get that webbing lumped up at the bottom because it'd look bad. I'm pushing the foam around a little bit to get it in line with the seam. And now once I have the front set, I'm going to, right in the front, there's that bracket that goes there. It's like a little paper holder for your registration or whatever they did back in the day. And I'm getting that seam. There's a seam right in the center of the cover. I'm going to get that thing centered right between where that bracket goes. I can see the 2 holes for the screws, and I'm going to attach that where it's centered. That's what I'm doing right here. And I'm going to use my little putty knife and make sure that I've got everything inserted in the clip on the frame right there. Now the kit does come with new clips that go on the frame. Now here I'm massaging the cover to the back because it's very tight. The cover's tight. It's all leather. There's no vinyl. There's not really any stretch to this thing. So I'm massaging everything to the back and then pulling it over the corner. Another thing is I might hold it on that seam in the back. I might like pinch that seam as I roll it over the back to make sure it doesn't try to rip on me. I didn't have any problems with this, but that's a good habit to get into is if you're pulling a seam over something that's really tight, pinch that seam together real hard. And now on the back, this thing just barely, it's very tight. It's very tight. It barely gets over the back. So you got to like gorilla grip that thing and as soon as it pops over the back, you stick it in the clip, right? And then I'm using my little putty knife and my little screwdriver to make sure nothing's wadded up and that it's in the clip correctly and that it's going to hold. I had a clip that was a little loose right there. I'm going to tighten that clip up a little bit, make sure everything holds good. So now I've got the back and the front attached and everything is where it's going to be more or less. All I need to do now is finish getting this thing around the edge and make sure that nothing gets wadded up, like I said before, and set it where it goes. There's not really a lot of room for adjustment now. There's going to be a bracket in the front there. I'm going to have to put that bracket for the track back on. I'm just pulling the side over. Now you're going to notice there are going to be a few wrinkles in this thing. There's different ways you can handle that. All right, just putting the sides together, put the sides in. You know, the little things that you do, like the little foam cutting, the massaging the seat, all those little things add up to make a process a lot easier, you know. And I'm looking at this one, and I'm noticing that the first seat that I put on, the bottom didn't have any wrinkles really. I mean, there's some in the faces of the covers, but this cushion, the second cushion, there are a few wrinkles in the sides there. You can see them. I'm trying to massage them a little bit. And they're not horrible or anything, but there's not really anything I can do about them other than heat this leather up. And so I'll show you. It's a nice sunny day today, and basically what I'm going to do when this thing's all done is I'm just going to set it out in the sun. And you'd be amazed if you've never done it what setting a seat out in the sun, a leather seat, will do in an hour. It's pretty amazing, honestly. These ones, the wrinkles aren't really that big of a deal. Now I'm just gonna poke the holes for the seat stops. Now I've got those things cleaned up. I degreased them, got the dust off of them. You know, pop those things in there. Just using a punch, and the foam was already cut out right here. I don't know why they didn't cut the foam out for the other bracket, but they had big cutouts where the stoppers went in the foam, which made it nice. Get this other stopper put in here. I use an impact gun as much as possible, but when it comes to like an older seat like this, you know, I tend to lean towards using hand tools just for safety's sake. I do use a screw gun on the screws because that's not too big of a deal, but anything where you need to feel the pressure, you know, I don't want to be hitting a 71 Corvette seat with an impact gun and take something too far that I would have felt with a hand tool and known to stop, you know. So here's that little bracket, and this bracket looks nice because that seam is centered. If I hadn't centered that seam when I installed the cover, you know, it would look goofy. All that little stuff counts, man. It all adds to the final score. The little corners right here, they don't really attach or anything, so I'm just kind of getting them pulled over good and stuffing them in there. And that's pretty much all I can do on the table. The sun's going to have to do the rest of the work for me on that one. Now I'm poking from the back side where the holes go. I like to do that whenever I can too. I'll go from the back side first, and then I'm going to put my punch in the front. I'm going to cut a small hole out there. I do have to go through that webbing too, which I thought it might be a little bit more of a problem than it was. It pretty much, as soon as you cut the cover, and I'm cutting the hole small because I don't want these holes to show. All that stuff counts. I'm just cutting a small hole, and now I'm going to put the bolt in now and see that it goes in freely, you know. Now if I hadn't cut that foam out, I would be trying to cut the foam. Oh, there's a stray dog wandered into the shop right there. He had an air tag on. I think one of the guys posted it on a local thing, and yeah, he disappeared, so I guess the owner came and got him. Yeah, he just wandered in off the street. We've had that happen a lot. Yeah, so I used to make videos and I would put music, that in the past when I've made them, I would put music over a lot of it, but I decided for these videos I was going to try to just talk and explain what I'm doing and my thought processes and all that. So if you watch this and you give me your opinion. Do you like the talking? Should there be less talking and some music in there with it? I'm just trying to, you know, I learn a lot of stuff from YouTube. Honestly, that's a big part of why I'm doing this, is because I've learned a lot of things from YouTube. And that's basically all. I'm just trying to share my information, you know, share what I know, maybe a little advertisement for the shop, you know, that kind of thing. So let me know. Do you like the talking? You want me to talk over the whole thing, or should I shut up and play some music? So here I'm going to go ahead and get started on the backrest. Now the backrest is a little more involved because you have these wonderful brackets all over the place. But I'm going to start the same here. I'm going to attach the springs to those wires on the back of the foam that I listed the cover to get everything held in place. Now the foam here is different than the stock foam. This is a 2-piece foam where the other one was just one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a measurement on this thing, and I'm going to put a slice right in the middle up to the button. And that just lets me get in there and see what's going on when I'm putting these bolts back in. And you can't see it when you're done anyway. And now I need to find that that bracket where the seatbelt comes through the foam and through the cover, and I need to cut that out, right? I don't know why they didn't do this. I don't know why the foam doesn't already have these in them, but they don't, so you got to figure it out. I'm going to use my foam knife, cut that hole. All right, okay, a little more. Want to make sure everything can get through there like it's supposed to. That seatbelt needs to move freely once it gets in there. Now that I've got that in place, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue that foam to the front foam just around the edge there. So that when I start pulling the cover over, you know, if you didn't glue this on here, I imagine it would move around when you try to pull that cover over the top because it's tight. There's not a whole lot of room to be, once you get that cover pulled over, there's not really going to be any opportunity to, like, if that foam wasn't glued, it'd be hard to get it right back in the right place, I believe. I think it would be hard. Now right here, I'm going to spray a little bit of silicone down in where that bracket's going to go, and it's just some spray silicone. We get it from Keystone. It just helps the cover slip around on the foam. It's kind of a mild thing, you know. It's not real extreme. Now I'm going to pull this first corner over. Yeah, the first corner goes over fairly easily. The second corner gets pretty tight. It's pretty tight at the top there. But they made the cover with that slice up the back of it, and it's got a kind of a funky little clip it has. But that they did that so that you could get it pulled over the top. Just working this thing a little bit, trying to get stuff around and over, and it's all going to look a little bit funky at first, but that's how it goes. You got to get it all together before you know how it's going to, you can't really tell till you're almost done how stuff's really going. I mean, you kind of can tell. You can kind of tell if it's going right. You know what I mean? You know when you're doing something and you know you've done it right. You know you're doing it right. And, you just have to trust the process. It's going to be a little funky as you go. As you can see right here, the cover's a little funky. I'm pulling that down. And if you notice that foam right above the chrome, see that little bit of foam showing above the chrome? That's kind of like pretty much always a little bit of an issue when you're putting seats together. And so I'm rubbing the cover down, from everywhere towards that foam, because if you don't get it pulled down right, you're going to have wrinkles. It's not going to look right. I'm slapping it a little bit. But you see how that foam has begun to disappear just by the chrome? That's the thing. You want to get it pulled down to where that foam doesn't show. And if you don't make a conscious effort to do that, so you basically get the cover on kind of in place, and then you start rubbing it down. See, everything I'm doing there is designed to pull those wrinkles down and cover that foam at the bottom. I'm still thinking about this bracket. This is probably the most stressful part of this whole thing, is this bracket, because it's just the whole deal is a little bit sketchy on that bracket. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the bottom listing up and set it before I go forward, because that just kind of, again, it gets it kind of in place a little bit. And there's nothing more I can do with that anyway. It's all fitting right. It's all fitting good. And now you can see that foam at the bottom by that chrome. It's just about gone, right? And that's kind of the goal. You got to keep that in mind always. if you put a cover on and that foam's sticking out on the side, it looks like hell, man. Doesn't look good. Not professional. So right here, I'm marking where there's like 3 studs on the back of this bracket. I got to get them through the cover, in that hole in the foam, and then through there's small little holes where the studs go through the frame and attach it. And it's a little bit of a process. Now I've already got one of them together, and I want to make sure I'm marking where the studs are, but now I'm going to measure up from that seam and make sure that they're in the same place that I put the other one, because I want the seats to look the same, right? And that's you know, that's the way it is. You got to make stuff look the same. Looks like a, you know, a matched pair. So right there, there's a seam that goes right across the top of the pleats on the front. And what I did was I measured 3/4 of an inch up, and that's where I put the holes for my bracket. It was 3/4 of an inch. It might have been an inch, but I think it was 3/4 of an inch. But I think anywhere in that range you'd be okay, because when I'm done, the seam is just barely visible underneath the bottom line of the bracket, and it looked pretty good. So now I'm just trying to, you have to get that thing in the right place on the cover, and then you got to get that foam, you got to wiggle everything around and get the foam to wiggle out of the way inside. And then I'm gonna hold this thing down with one hand. You can see I've got a lot of pressure on it because I'm trying to get that first middle screw, the middle nut started on that thing, and it doesn't look like it is, but I think that this piece is fragile, so I'm trying not to put too much pressure on it in one place. I'm just trying to get it started. So I just got a couple threads on that middle nut there, and I'm just kind of checking in there to see that I got the foam out from under the bracket as much as possible and that the foam looks good around it. Kind of a tedious little thing right here. And I'm gonna try to make sure everything's where I want it. My flashlight out, what's going on in here? And then I'm gonna try to get these other 2, and I'm getting that seam pushed up underneath there where I want it, you know. Now I'm gonna put the other 2 bolts, the ones that are on the side. There's 3 in that bracket, so I'm trying to get the other 2 started, and I'm not going crazy with how tight I'm putting them. I just want to make sure it's secured. I don't want to bust one of those studs off the back. I'm liking everything. Everything's looking pretty good. The top of that seat looks real funky till you put the bracket on. But they did a good job. The pattern was good. So now I'm going to put this other one in, and then I guess I already got it. Oh, no, I'm getting some help. I want him to put it on while I push up on it. And then I'm just going to go back and check, because as you tighten one up, the other ones will loosen a little bit. So I'm just going to make sure they're all snug, and then I'm going to move on. All right, once the bracket is in place here, and I'm all happy with that, I'm content, it's good, I like it. Now we're going to put the button, I'm going to put some listings in the side listings, side wires. These come in the kit, they give you all the new listing wires. Now the button assembly. Get that thing up in there, and then like I said, there's 2 nuts at the top. There's 2 screws in the middle, and then 2 screws at the bottom. Kind of getting towards the end of this thing. When you do this, if you have that cover centered properly, which you should if you followed so far, that button should be that whole conglomeration of stuff they have at the top of the cover there. It's got this funky clip in the middle, and the button should be centered real well once you close that clip. The ones that I took off of these covers, it was a little bit off, and that, you know, it's just those little things, you know. You get this thing all together, and if the button isn't in the middle of that flap there, it looks a little off, you know. You can tell. Got that thing on, And I'm gonna put some hog rings in these upper listings and the side listings now, I believe, and some of them will come back out again when I cut the slits for the hard shell on the back. You have to cut the slits, but you don't want to cut them. There's like these two pieces of metal that stick up there, but you don't want to make your cuts at the top because it might show once you get the back on. And so I put the hog rings in. I'm going to clip the center clip. And I'm going to put a couple hog rings in here. And I'm going to end up taking these back out again because I want to have it pulled down where it goes. And then I'm going to mark on the cover at the bottom of the metal clip that comes out. It's not a clip, it's a metal like flap. But first I'm going to go ahead and cut out this hole for the bracket that goes around the button. And that's going to kind of hold my flap in place. And that's what I'm doing. I'm being real careful about how big I'm making this hole. A little hard to see everything, I know, but I did the best I could with the with the camera here. Trying to, like I said, I'm trying to get work done while I make these videos, and we got to produce. Got a big shop, we got overhead, So I've got that. I'm getting that. I think I've got it screwed on. I'm screwing it on right now. Same thing with this. Even though I'm using a gun, I'm being careful not to over tighten anything because, see, I just went back and checked it because I checked it with a hand screwdriver. Anytime I'm putting stuff together, I don't want to put too much pressure on old stuff and break it. So I'm pulling that down. Remember I was talking about pulling that down. I'm pulling that down while I'm hooking these side hog rings, side listings, getting those in place, double checking everything. Move that around a little bit. The weather's been kind of here and there, so it gets hot and cold. We've had mosquitoes in the shop lately. Man, I'm putting off on at work. It sucks. But you got to do what you got to do, right? You got to do what you got to do. It's nice that we don't work outdoors, but it's as close to outdoors as you can get being in a building, which is nice. We got two big roll-up doors at each end, one at each end of the shop. And I'm putting the stoppers on the bottom of the seat right here. And now here's those cuts I was talking about. And I can tell where the top of it is. I'm going to the bottom. I want to go at the bottom. And I'm going to have to release these hog rings, slip the little flaps through there. But I don't want to have that cut too high. So right here, I'm protecting the cover with a piece of cardboard because you have to push that thing down while you put that on. That's a key takeaway from this. If you don't learn anything else, if you don't know that little trick, that's a good trick. Put a little cardboard underneath those levers, because if you don't do that, the back of this hard shell thing will cut the cover and you'll be able to see it. Or at least it will scrape it. And it's just another one of those little things, all adds up to a professional job, right? We're professionals around here, people. Even if you're not, act like you are, right? Putting the little bracket on for the seat belt to go through. Double checking stuff, looking stuff over. There's only one thing left to do here. I have to cut the hole through the front of the cover in that bracket where the seat belt goes through. I'm going to cut that thing out carefully. Oh, so carefully. Again, man, upholstery's awesome. You put some beautiful stuff together and then you cut holes in it. You got to love it. All right, so we're wrapping this thing up now. We're going to put it together. Everything's ready. Have the holes on the side. Going to be careful as I put this up here. Now there is on the back of these bolts that connect the back to the bottom, there's a lock nut on the back side, and you don't want to over tighten. There's also a threaded bolt that the bolt goes through, and it's attached to the lower frame, but then the lock nut goes on. You don't want to over tighten that bolt. You want the back to move freely when they go to let the seat forward for whatever reason. If you over tighten that bolt, you might have problems with those chrome arms cutting your cover or something. So you just get them on there good, and then you attach that lock nut to the back. Now I'm putting the tracks on. The little bracket that the track went through is already on there. Put the knob on the track lever. Now I'm going to attach the bracket, that arm that runs up in through the backrest to the button. And I've already, if you remember, I cut that foam out in the cover over the bolt hole, and it kind of, as when I squeezed that cover over, it kind of got in the way, but I was able to just kind of shift it around a little bit underneath the cover. And you know, since I cut some of that foam out, it made it just a little bit easier. Still a little tedious, but every little thing helps, right? All right, so that's gonna just about do it here. The only thing left to do is put them out in the sun. If you watched the whole thing, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions or concerns, or you're tackling this on your own, you know, and you don't do upholstery, if you have any questions, reach out. I'll answer them as soon as I can. And there are a few wrinkles, so I'm going to set these things out in the sun, and then we're going to take a look at what they look like before the sun and then after. It's subtle, but it's, you know. So here they are when I first put them in the sun. You can see there's some wrinkles in the face of the covers there. You saw the ones in the side earlier. They're just small wrinkles. I mean, these are really passable the way they are. But this is when I first put them in the sun. And then here they are after the sun, a little different angle. There's still a few little tiny wrinkles here and there, but most of them came out. You can see most of the ones in the face especially. Those all came out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will talk to you next time.